Tale Podcast, how stories shape and change our lives. Hello, everyone. Welcome back and Happy New Year to you. We're going to start off this new year with an interesting series of conversations that I'll be having with a very good friend and colleague of mine, Dr. Amy Ferrell. And it's going to be a conversation about what, in mythical terms, we have learned to call the divine feminine and the divine masculine energies. Now, when I say energies, that's what I mean. We're not referring necessarily to sex or gender. We're referring to energies that are cultivated and imbued and inherent in all human beings. So this kind of harkens back to something that I talked about in one of my previous episodes when I was talking more about engaging the opposites, the opposite concepts, and how we as people who are egoed and experience life that way kind of have to have a point of reference and 2 points of reference that sort of sit on opposite sides of each other to help us find balance, but to help us also be able to explore what's in between. And binaries are hard. Binaries are hard because, again, as embodied human beings, we have a tough time interpreting what certain binaries, such as the divine feminine and the divine masculine archetypal energies, what those are there for, what the purpose of them is. Our tendency is to want to think that they're separate and they're supposed to be separate, and that we're supposed to resolve the tension between the two by choosing one over the other. And there we begin to take opposites and we put them in opposition to each other. But the weird paradoxical truth, I believe, behind these binaries that we perceive and seem to resonate with when we see and hear them is not that they are meant to show us separateness. Rather, they are there to instruct us how to learn to come back to the underlying truth, which is they are all connected. They all belong to and come from the same thing. So, in the next 3 episodes after this one, we'll be engaging in what I think is going to be a very fascinating conversation with a very fun and respected and intelligent friend and scholar. And I'm looking forward to posting them. I'm looking forward to having you all begin to listen to them. So before we start in with that, I just wanted to offer a little parable of my own. And this is a parable that I wrote myself and I published in the book, The Fire That Never Dies, Dragons of the West. And I'm just going to read it to you verbatim out of the book. And what I hope that it does is I hope it inspires you to begin asking some of your own questions. And that it helps maybe provoke some questions that hadn't occurred to you to ask before through the telling of the story itself. So, sit back and enjoy it. I'm excited to share it with you, and here we go. At the beginning of time, whereby manifest became the divine principles of the unity between the feminine and the masculine, the syzygy was born. At some point along the way, the half of syzygy, that was the masculine part, began to wonder what it would be like to experience the world on his own. And so he tore himself away from syzygy. When he did this, he became a half-man. He appears as a half-man because he is only half of a divine union. He proclaimed himself as emancipated from the divine unity, and so claimed his own identity and confused his halfness with wholeness. He reveled in his own isness, But the price he paid for it was that he was now destined to walk around in a halfway, speak in a halfway, think about things in a halfway, and see the world in a halfway. When he tells the story of his birth, he can only tell half of the story. He only remembers his birth as his emancipation from the divine feminine half. He is meant to be rejoined with her, but he has long forgotten that she exists, and so continues to pursue his own exploits in a world of his own making, a half-world. Feeling unencumbered and very free and very sure of himself, he wanders the earth, convincing others to join him in his halfness. For despite his newfound sense of autonomy, he still longs for connection with others. He appears to others as untethered in some way, master of his own fate, and so many find themselves attracted by his invitation to come join him and live in their own halfness just as he does. He is very charismatic in his fervor to establish a half-world populated with half-people. Many others begin to claim their own halfness with him, and his half-world begins to grow. Because he has rejected the wholeness of the syzygy, he looks to create his own version of it in his halfness, as he builds the half-world, not able to see that he creates this half-world in his own half-image. There is no acknowledgement that anything might be missing in the half-world of the half-man. And if anyone should dare suggest this, it serves to provoke his ire, and that is intolerable to him. There is no need for wisdom in the half-man's world, because wisdom is the practice of making room for what one does not yet know of and what one has not yet learned. Certainty, not wisdom, is the guiding principle of the half-man's half-world. And in this world he believes that he already sees everything that there is to see and knows everything that there is to know. In the half-man's half-world, keeping the peace means keeping things the way that they are and always have been. In the half-man's half-world, the purpose of an education is to learn to maximize one's utility, not increase one's wisdom. The half-world of the half-man does not expand, but remains static. His half-world is like a steady clock that must always be run smoothly and in the same way for all of time. If there is a problem anywhere in the good functioning of the clock-like nature of his half-world, the defective part or parts must be identified, removed, and replaced. This is how problems are solved and handled in the half-world of the half-man. There is no need for diagnosis, care, or cure. The defective parts are just simply removed and replaced. There is nothing further to understand about them except that they no longer function and have lost their usefulness. In this way, he sees only half of the problem, but believes himself to see the whole problem. Naturally, he is only able to attend to the half of the problem that he sees, while the other half goes unnoticed and neglected. If someone should try to convince him that there exists something from outside of his realm, another half of the world that he cannot see, he becomes very agitated and even vengeful. Such a vulgar suggestion threatens to derail the good and steady functioning of his clock-like half-world. There are no artists or prophets in the half-world of the half-man. Such people would be a disturbance and a distraction. At best, they may be amusing entertainment, but nothing more. If they should start to become too disruptive, the half-man must intervene. Such people must be silenced or removed by force if necessary to keep the half-man's half-world from falling into disarray. Order and piety are among some of the most important virtues of the half-man's half-world. Because he is a half-man, he can only speak and understand the language of his half-world. If anybody from the other half should try to speak to him, he cannot comprehend what they are saying. If they continue to try to talk to him, then he begins to grow even more agitated. He tells the other part that it should not speak, and that it should be put in its place, and that it needs to begin to obey the rules he has already established in his half-world, governed only by those few the half-man has chosen to govern for the good functioning of the half-world. If one cannot obey the rules, then they must be punished until they are made to only acknowledge the half-reality of the half-man's world. Eventually, the half-man's world, of which he has spent much toil building, perfecting, and maintaining, becomes the only world that the half-man has ever known, as he has quite forgotten, again, all about the divine unity from whence he came. If he himself grows sick, he can only find the remedy he needs from the half that he has rejected. But because the half-man has forgotten about the original unity, he wanders around his half-world only with a vague sense that something is missing, that he is only a half. He has trained himself to reject this feeling, as he has trained himself to reject many feelings, as an unfortunate leftover byproduct of an old irrationality that he deplores and works very hard to try to conquer within himself and to rid himself of by his sheer force of will alone. Because he has lost all knowledge of the original unity from where he came, he walks in despair, but not knowing that he's walking in despair, not knowing that he is only a half, not understanding that he needs the other half. Continuously looking from within his own halfness for the remedy, he only vaguely surmises what he needs but cannot find in order to feel whole again. That's the end of the little parable. I hope you found that enjoyable. I hope you found it interesting to some degree. I thought it was a good prompt to begin this wonderful conversation that I'm going to have over the next 3 episodes. So it's a 3-episode arc on the nature of the divine feminine and the divine masculine archetypal energies, as I, again, will be in conversation with my good friend and colleague, Dr. Amy Ferrell, as we explore those things together and together try to sort out what we think each of those mean. And we will also talk about how our culturally constructed and instructive ideas of sexuality and gender, particularly over the last several centuries, have influenced our thinking about that and have instructed us to either embrace some parts of those for ourselves, those energies, while also being asked to reject others for all sorts of different reasons. This will be a very interesting and enlightening conversation that I think you'll all enjoy. And again, I just want to say thank you to those of you who have continued to follow along and are finding something out of this podcast of great value to you. Thank you so much for being a part of this community and participating. Welcome back again, and as always, my friends, take good care of yourselves.